quite frequently about trainers using food when training animals. So today, let's discuss the science behind why it's so useful to use food when training new behaviors or doing behavior modification.
Animals engage in behaviors that are valuable to them. Food is a valuable resource for all living beings. Without it, we wouldn't survive. An animal's brain releases the neurotransmitter dopamine when it engages in pleasurable experiences, an activity such as eating, for example. Dopamine is that neurotransmitter that makes you feel good. So if it's released when eating, you'll want to engage in that activity again because you felt good doing it. This is the reason we tend to reach for that bowl of ice cream when we're depressed. We unconsciously know that eating makes us feel happier. Eating increases the likelihood of survival, so the brain was constructed to activate this pleasurable feeling, so the animal will engage in the difficult but necessary task of going out to acquire food. Back to what we said earlier about animals engaging in behaviors that are valuable to them, we must come to the realization that many of the behaviors we want our dogs to learn have no inherent value to the animal. However, this does not mean we can't or shouldn't teach our animals these behaviors. It just means we need to add value to the behavior we are teaching. For example, for a dog, there's no value to walking by your side on a loose leash when you'd rather charge ahead to sniff the next tree. We can add value to the behaviors we want simply by using food. If the animal gets frequently and repeatedly rewarded for walking by your side, that behavior suddenly has more value than charging ahead of you, and the animal will choose to engage in the more valuable behavior, which is walking by your side. When an animal gets a reward, dopamine is released in the brain. When this happens repeatedly, learning takes place. The animal learns to continue to offer that behavior because it feels good to do so. Over time, even when the rewards are not present and the behavior is only rewarded occasionally, the behavior becomes so hardwired and well learned that it becomes the default behavior in that particular scenario. Even when an animal has a negative emotional response to a particular stimulus, like another dog or a man wearing a large hat, we can use food to elicit a positive emotional response due to the release of dopamine. This is why fearful and reactive dogs can be rehabilitated using a process called counter-conditioning. We'll talk more in depth about this process in a separate video, but as a most basic explanation, the feared stimulus, like the man wearing a big hat, becomes a predictor of good things. Over time, and after several repetitions, the dog will feel good at the sight of the man in the big hat because dopamine was released so many times when he appeared. Using science, we can use the brain's normal functions to our advantage to create a well-mannered and happy dog.